Well, maybe that's the one.
Your mic's on, Angela.
Oh, okay. Well, I talked to myself. Sorry. I'm trying to find the other meeting. Well, I can't find it.
Angela, it's from Jeff on Wednesday.
Okay. I'll find it. Thank you.
I ordered a chicken shawarma.
For just yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Joe, your mic's on.
You ordered dinner and you didn't.
I know.
I hope that's vegan chicken shawarma.
It is. From a local restaurant.
I think it's not starting.
Got it.
I'm gonna have to leave this one. Okay, let's see. Just give me a second.
I just spoke to Connie. She's trying the one that you sent today, Jeff.
You guys were gonna start?
Oh, let me see if I try this one down here.
Okay. Angie, can you turn off your mic?
Turn off my light?
Mike,
Oh, well, I'm trying to find you. Just a second. Go ahead and start. I'm trying to do something here. Can't find me. There you are.
I love virtual meetings.
in accordance with the provision of the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10-4-6 PL 1975 C 231 S1 amended 2006 C70 S2. The Asbury Park Board of Education has provided adequate notice of this meeting by sending a notice of the time, date, location, and to the extent known, the agenda of this meeting to the Asbury Park Press, the new coaster on March 5th, 2021 via email. Copies of this notice have also been placed at the Administration Building Bulletin Board, the district schools, Asbury Park Municipal Building, Asbury Park Police Department, and filed with the city clerk on March 5th of 2021. The mission statement of the Asbury Park School District is to provide all students with a comprehensive and progressive education where everyone possesses the skill and character to succeed in a diverse, evolving global society. Roll call, please, Mr. Hastings.
Okay, we're going to take roll. Please unmute, pause for a second, and then once you respond, mute yourself again. Ms. Abez Anderson,
Here.
Ms. Breach, Ms. Cook, Mr. Grillo,
Here.
Mr. LaRocca. Here. Mr. Rennie. Mr. Saunders.
Here.
Ms. Lozinski.
Here.
Ms. Etienne.
Here. Can we please stand for the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're gonna have the public participation in accordance to board policy 167. We have 3 minutes. Well, we're gonna read, if you have a caller, please announce your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to state your cause.
Yeah, so for the software, you can put a question in the Q&A if you like. There's the chat feature which you can utilize, or the raise hand. If you're calling, you can also use *3, which will put you into a queue. And then when you are unmuted, it will be announced. We also have our public comments email box that you can respond to. And we do have one email that I will read, and then we'll check the other emails to see if anything else has come in, and then move to other questions or comments. So I'll start with Mr. Anthony Frieda, Tony Frieda, 1311 Langford. I'm sure you are all aware by now of the stabbing yesterday at the high school. I have lived across from the high school for many years now, and in my experience, I feel that the high school itself has some very serious issues that need to be addressed right away by the town and also the high school staff. I've been bringing this to the town and the high school leadership's attention for years now. I witnessed from my home office a terrible thing yesterday when 2 people were stabbed in the street at 3:30 dismissal steps from the high school front door. The scene was utter chaos. I called the APPD, who thankfully responded super fast. Before they arrived, it was totally out of control over here. This was one of the worst things I have ever seen since moving here. I am sorry to say that I am not surprised this happened, as I have seen these actions take place before, but not to this extent. Something needs to be done, guys. The APHS as an entity happens to consistently not be a good neighbor to the homeowners living in the surrounding blocks of the high school. I think that the high school staff itself needs to consider its actions or lack thereof in relation to the community in which it lives and operates. Safety here is the main concern for all. Bullet 1, student safety and behavior. I have sent so many emails and even video time, and again, to the high school leaders and Mr. Moore concerning students exiting the high school at the end of the day. This goes back for years, and still to this day, there is no plan here. This is my main concern, as everyone's safety is at risk, both students and homeowners alike. The town manager at the time and Mr. Kelso were made aware as well, and yet still to this day, no solid plan to manage how the kids leave school. When I first moved here, the APPD worked with the school security to monitor dismissal. I even met Mr. Lewis Jordan to go over all this, and he assured me this would be addressed. This monitoring stopped for some reason. I again reached out to Mr. Repollet, who responded to me saying that we are currently developing a plan of action to ensure the residential properties along the dismissal route are protected. As of today, I can see nothing of the sort in place. I would respectfully request that the town and high school put in place a daily plan ASAP to monitor dismissal of the students and do not stop it. I have documented to the town that my neighbor at 1000 Sunset even had a tree branch thrown through his window by a student. Trespassing through yards and gun incidents also have been documented, all associated with the high school and within yards of high school property. Emails have been sent to the town on March 20th of 16, April 11th of 17, September 9 of 20, October 5 of 20, November 9 of 20. One other side issue that I've been asking for resolution on, or at least consideration for the homeowners, is parking concerning the school staff. I've reached out to Sancha Gray and the town several times via email to address the parking issue on Langford Street with no response at all. The teachers are choosing to park in front of residents' homes first when there's ample parking surrounding the immediate high school where there are spaces wide open. I see no reason for any teachers or staff to have to park on Langford Street. The street is clogged up as it is, unsafe for traffic, and leaves nowhere to park for homeowners. Most of the homes in this area only have on-street parking. These choices the staff is making is absolutely inconsiderate. Teachers and staff should be told to park closest to the school in parking spaces, and in the overflow to park up and down Sunset. The school should look into utilizing school property for parking, not town roads. Please have some respect for the people living as a neighbor to the school. I know that they're going to make this street a one-way, but I ask that the teacher parking please be addressed as well. Also, as an added comment, I have personally emailed the superintendent, to which I have gotten no response. It seems like the school can't even get a plan in place here that sticks, and also does not see itself as part of the neighborhood. This stuff happens every year. People close to the high school have to deal with noise, trash, fights, etc., all coming from the neighborhood, which is from the neighbor, which in this case is the school. I think they should start to look at things as how they are perceived to surrounding neighbors. I realize that I live near a school, but like you said, for years now, there are too many incidents to mention. The standard here in AP should be raised and also progressing towards a better, safer experience for all involved. This school and its staff should be setting the example, not ending up on ABC News for stabbings. If the school needs me to assist with a parking and student dismissal plan, I would be happy to help them do it because they haven't done it so far. I think we can do better. I can be reached at a phone number or via email if you have questions, but I hope we can get something situated here and proactively avoid these problems for the long term. Regards, Tony Frieda.
Yes.
All right, at this time we have no more emails. Mr. Cancel, do we see any comments or phone callers?
None at this time.
So in response to the public comment, I had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Frieda. And while the incident, very unfortunate incident that occurred that's referenced in the public comment happened, it should be noted that that's an ongoing police matter for which I will not add any additional context to. But we are extremely proud of and continue to provide ample supports for our students. We have had ongoing social and emotional programming for our children within the Asbury Park School District. What we are not able to do is provide those supports outside of the scope of the school space. And for as much as we continue to engage with our school community at large, as well as our parents and caregivers, we still endeavor to ensure that they are provided with a safe, nurturing, and loving environment. The unfortunate incident was an anomaly. We continue to make sure that we have a presence in and around our school buildings. And I want that to be noted, that while there are incidents that may occur within our community, we remain vigilant and attentive to the needs of our students. That is not a typical characterization of the children that attend the Asbury Park School District.
Okay.
You have no other comments?
Are there any other comments? So the public participation is closed.
Closing public participation at 7:17.
Whereas the Open Public Meeting Act allows
I
for.
think I'm sorry,
Oh.
you may want to go to the presentation on the budget
First?
item first.
Okay, let's do that. So our superintendent has you have a presentation tonight? Is your presentation or is it Jeff's?
Well, it's collectively, it's always mine, right? So my superintendent's report tonight will be given by our business administrator, Jeff Hastings. It is our budget meeting presentation. Thank you, Madam President.
Okay, so tonight we have to adopt the tentative budget for next year's school year, the 2022 school year. We've spoken in our finance committee with members about the budget and have done a similar presentation with them. So we'll go through about 10 slides we have here and go through what the proposed budget is for 2022. We'll talk a little bit and touch a little bit on our adequacy budget and state aid and the trends we see there in aid and the S2 bill. And then certainly we'll open it for any questions you may have as we go along here. So we talk about the 2022 budget, and we talk about it in terms of three components or three buckets. So we have our state aid, which is our first bucket. And as you know, as an Abbott district, state aid used to be about 85% of our budget. But with S2 in place and with changes at the state, the funding from the state is being reduced over time. So our state aid bucket was very full at one point and is now starting to diminish. We have our local contribution, which you often hear referred to as our local fair share. But basically, when we talk about local fair share, we talk about property taxes. So property taxes are a component that contributes to our budget as well. The third bucket is our district contribution. So our district contribution really comes from within, and it's from operational savings and efficiencies that we can realize as we move through the school year and as we move from one year to the next year. We want to talk a little bit about our adequacy budget. In terms of the adequacy budget, that's the budget that the state uses for Asbury Park and for our enrollment based on a model school. So when they look at Asbury Park and look at our enrollment, they say that we should be educating our students in a thorough and efficient way for $45.3 roughly million. The way that works then is they look at the town and look at the wealth and the property of the town and determine what they think the local town should contribute towards that $45 million. Looking at Asbury Park, for 2022, the state has determined that our local taxes should be about $22 million. That leaves the remaining $23 million, which is realized as equalization aid or state aid. And you can see the hands at the bottom of our screen here, because one, that's coming from the state, that they're giving it to us, but those hands don't go away. Those hands still look to control the funds that are given to us, and they oversee the funds in terms of audits, legislative audits, grant audits, and state monitor. Getting a little bit deeper into our adequacy budget, as I noted, the adequacy budget really is based on a model school concept. So the state takes a model K-5 district with a model, if you will, staff, principals, vice principals, nurses, teachers, aides, etc. They have a model number of students that attend that school. And through that concept, they come up with a BPA or a base pupil amount. That amount is approximately $12,177. To that, they then look at other factors. So they look at our demographics, they look at regionalization, any impact there. They look at our English learner language population. They look at our free and reduced lunch status, and they weight those different areas and use multipliers to apply to that base pupil amount as well. And then they also look at the elementary K-5 model versus the middle school model, which costs a little bit more to educate. And then, of course, the high school model, which is weighted even a little higher than the K-5s. So they do those various formulas and come up with our budget. And as we noted on the previous slide, the state is saying our budget should be about $45.3 million. We did talk about the local property taxes, and the local taxes are called fair share, local fair share, because basically they look at two components. One is the property value or assessment value of our homes and properties, and the other is what they call district income or district wealth. So they apply some weighted formulas to those as well, and that's how they come up with what they think the municipality should contribute towards the school district's budget. I also wanted to talk just briefly about our adjustment aid, because as we talk about the Asbury Park school budget over time, and over the past several meetings, and as we go forward, of course, we talk about the S2 bill, which talks about the reduction in our adjustment aid. And the only point I want to note here is we're really working on two tracks. One is the local fair share, or the taxable amount that's coming from our residents, and what the city is paying versus what the state says they should be paying. And then there's this adjustment aid. The adjustment aid came out of the change in the formula back in 2008, and that's where the state said, we're going to change the school funding formula, and we realized by changing it, we may drastically impact various budgets at various districts. So in order to keep anybody from falling off a cliff, we're going to put in a hold harmless adjustment aid, and that hold harmless amount will mean you don't get any less aid than what you were getting back in the 2008-9 timeframe. That did not go away over time, though. So what the S2 bill did back in 2018 was say, we no longer think that's appropriate, and we're going to start to claw that back. So when we talk about the loss of adjustment aid, that's what we're referring to, which was approximately $24 million, $24.5 million in 2018. And over the next several years, how the state is going to claw that money back. Talking about our state aid and just giving you a little history on the state aid, you can see in around 2018, we started to lose aid. In subsequent years, as you can see there, our losses have increased. We started about $1 million up until our budget now for 2022, which is realizing about $6.7 million in loss year over year in state aid. So looking over those 5 or so years, the district has lost between the S2 bill and the adjustment aid, and then some enrollment adjustments, we've lost about $18.3 million. And as we trend through the rest of the S2 period, it's looking like we may lose up to $28 million through both S2 and enrollment adjustments. And we talked a little bit about our various buckets and our various constituencies that are components of the budget and how it's put together. So we do, as we noted, have the state contribution, and that contribution is declining. And based on the S2 adjustments, our state aid was about $38 million for 2022. We have the local fair share, or the local contribution, AKA property taxes, which for the 2022 budget is going to be approximately $12.9 million. And then we have our district's contribution to help make this budget work and help absorb these losses that we see. And that's sort of broken down in some different categories there, as you see. One being, a constant review by administration, by the superintendent, of the programs that we're implementing, the effectiveness of those programs, and how we move forward with the funding of various programs. As you're aware, over several years, we've been addressing our students' literacy and math skills, and part of that plan included working hand in hand with HMH to bring in the Read 180 and Math 180 programs, System 44 programs, and some of those others. And at the beginning of that time, we made a significant investment in both materials and software and in training and consultation for our staff and our teachers so that they could effectively use those programs. Over time, we've built our internal capacity. We've been able to sort of create the train the trainer model. So we now have staff members in the district that can assist in training new staff members on the Read at 180 and the Math 180 concepts, as well as help refresh others that may need some assistance as we go through the school year. And the savings we've realized over the course of a couple of years is about $1.1 million. As we've gone through these sort of bridge years of COVID, where we had the second half of the 20 school year and now the first half of the 21 school year, we've been able to accumulate or not spend or be more efficient with the funding that we do have. So we're able to carry forward about $4 million from 20 and 20 into the 22 budget. So that's helping to offset the losses that we see for 2022. We talk about our staff and the impact that these losses have on our staff members, but that's being addressed really through staff reduction via retirements and through resignations. So while we're not riffing or doing those sorts of drastic actions, we are looking at folks that are retiring or that are deciding to move on to other areas and evaluating their classes and the student population or the duties that those folks are responsible for, and helping to spread those out over the remaining staff. We've done that a lot at central office and at the administrative level, and that savings over time has been about $1.3 million. This year alone, looking at some of the retirements and resignations, just in salaries, we're looking at about $675,000 of additional savings. So those are significant savings that we've been able to make this year, that we've been able to use to help offset this loss of about $6.7 million going into 2022. The other thing that we've talked about at our meetings is our green programs, our ESIPs or energy savings improvement programs, and how we can become more efficient in the district. And for example, we just announced recently the implementation of a solar program on our 4 schools. And overall, while it varies from building to building, we're looking about a 50% savings on our electric utility bill, which again is about $250,000. So we have several issues here that are contributing to savings that can help offset some of the loss of the state aid. I want to touch briefly in some graphs here, just because it's a little bit easier to see on the state aid and the adequacy budget. So if you look at this graph, this bar graph, or columns, if you will, we're looking at 2 things. We're looking at our actual budget for 2022, and we're looking at our adequacy, or what the state says we should be utilizing for 2022. So the light blue on the left is what we're actually receiving in state aid, and the dark blue is what the state said we should have gotten. So you can see here we've gotten about $38 million or so of state aid. The state is saying we really should have been in the low 20s. And similarly on the local contribution or the property tax side, what we're receiving is about $12.8 million. And what the state thinks we should be receiving is about $23 million. If you look at state aid over time, this is just an easy concept here, an easy way to see that drastic loss that we've talked about over time. The 18 million so far as of 2022, from about 55 down into the 30s, and that continues to trend downward as we get through the remaining years of S2. You look at the local tax contribution, the light blue is what the state says the fair share should be. The dark blue is what the actual property tax contribution is. So you can see that the state is expecting a significantly higher contribution from the local residents than what we're currently collecting. And again, if you look at that in a line chart, top line, again, is what the state says we should be collecting. And the lower line is what we're actually collecting in local fair share. We talk about the municipal tax rate. When we look at Monmouth County, education, and this is true across the state, education is usually the majority, or at least more than 50% of what makes up your local tax rate. So for the county here at Monmouth, on average, 54% of the local municipal tax rate is made up from education taxes. We look at some of our Abbott neighbors, some of our urban areas, You can see Neptune is 48% of their tax rate is educational related. Long Branch is 46. Newark 31. We get down to Asbury here at 27, all the way down to Camden where it's 14%. We want to talk about the overall budget for 2022. And as you can see at the bottom, our total budget is going to be about $82.5 million. Of that, we have our three funds, which is our operating budget, which is what we use for our day-to-day activities and expenses. And our operating budget is $57.5 million. Our grants and entitlements are another source of funding, and we use those. It cuts both ways with grants. One of the difficulties with grants is grants are aimed at very specific areas. So when we get Title I, Title II funds, when we get COVID relief funds, that's terrific, and it helps us certainly in addressing those various needs. However, that money is specifically targeted to those areas. So we try to, through staffing and allocation of resources of our staff, to help use those funds so that if someone's working particularly in a Title I area or a Title II area, that we can expense part of their salaries and benefits to those grants. So while it is difficult in that these are targeted relief funds, there is some flexibility for us to shift some of the cost away from the district itself and our operating budget and move it to the grants and entitlements side. And then the third component that goes into the overall budget of the district is our debt. And right now we don't have any debt, so you can see that's zero. When we talk about the operating budget, which is the $57.5 million for 2022, you might ask, where is that going? That's a lot of money. Where do we spend all that money? So as is typical in New Jersey and in education, about 2/3 or 66% of the budget goes to salaries and benefits. The next largest chunk for Asbury Park is our charter tuition. So almost 20% of that $57 million, or around $11 million of 57. So that's 11 million out of our 57 goes to charter school tuition. We have our next highest category, which is our out of district or our special ed placements that are out of district. And that's about $3 million in the 2022 budget. We often talk about utilities and energy savings. And while it's terrific that we're able to put these projects in place, it does represent a rather small portion of our budget. The other area is other. And what goes into other are things like books and supplies and trips and facility improvements and transportation and athletics and those sorts of things. And that's the $5 million that's sort of left out of that 57 that goes into those other areas. And that's about 8% of our budget. When we look at the tax impact of our budget on the municipality, on our taxpayers, we have a chart here that we have various assessed values. We have the proposed rate for 2022, and this gives us an idea of what those increases are going to look like for 2022. So if you look at the average assessment, and again, we're looking at assessments, we're not looking at retail values or what you would sell your home for. We're looking at what the town is assessing you at. The average assessment in town is about $407,500. So for 2022, we're looking at about an educational component of the tax of $2,600, which is an increase of about $323 or $26 a month. That's sort of the nutshell version of our budget and what we're looking at. Again, this is our tentative budget. What happens is you look at our tentative budget, we present it to the board. The board will approve our tentative budget. It then goes to the county office, the County Department of Education office, where they will then review the budget and make suggestions and, point out any errors we may have made in putting into the software or make some suggestions on other areas, ask questions. And then as you see here, we have two things going on here. One is we'll have our final budget hearing, our public hearing for the 2022 school budget on Thursday, April 29th. And what I will point out is that we have a very small window, and that's everybody here in New Jersey, but we have a window from April 24th to May 7th to approve the final budget. Unfortunately, our board meeting right now is scheduled for April 22nd. So with the board's consent and permission, we're also looking to move our Thursday, the 22nd meeting to the 29th so that we can fit into that window that the state requires us to be in. That concludes my comments on the budget for 2022. If there's any questions from anybody, we'd be happy to take them.
Jeff, just in terms of process, when is that exhibit available that we make public every year with regard to the budget? It'll include the cost per student as well as the various amounts of accounts.
Right. So I think what you're referring to is the user-friendly budget. That becomes available once the county approves. Right now, we're talking about a tentative budget. So if I were to run the user-friendly budget through the software, I can't do it right now because we haven't submitted it to the county, and it just doesn't work that way. Once we get approval, we then have, I believe it's 3 days to then run that and post it up onto the website and to make it available for the public. I think between now and then, we're happy to answer questions from anybody, whether it's the board or the public. This presentation will be available to anybody who would like to see it. Again, it's based on our tentative budget, so it's sort of draft, if you will, but it is available. And of course, the superintendent, myself, and Ms. Brown are available to anybody who may have questions if they want to submit an email or call us, whatever the case may be, or work through the board members themselves.
Jeff, it's Joe Grillo. Is this already up on the website?
No, this is not up because it's not been approved. This is just our tentative budget, and the board hasn't even approved our tentative yet. So right now, the board will be approving the tentative budget so that we can then submit it to the county for county review.
Okay. Even the tentative budget, we can't have it up there, right?
Right, we're still waiting for the county to then look at it and approve it, or in rare cases not approve it, but usually what happens is they look at it, they look at the supporting documents that we provide, and they talk to us about moving things around within the software and put it in column B instead of column A kind of stuff, as well as looking at what progress are we making on taxes, is the district moving forward with trying to get to that adequacy balance they talk about. We submit a number of documents that talk about those sorts of things, and the county will certainly come back to us and question why we're increasing taxes by X or Y, and whether they consider that enough or not enough.
Any additional questions?
Okay. So I just want to thank Jeff Hastings, Ivy Brown, and the entire business department for their work around making sure that this was done in a timely manner. In addition, I want to thank the entire executive leadership team because it was through their concerted and deliberate and very intentional efforts that we are able to right-size our district, but also ensure being fiscally sound and responsible. So kudos to everyone that was involved in the development of this budget.
So Madam President,
At this time, I would like a motion,
Can I have a quick question?
yes, Ms. Breach.
The pie chart that you showed us, will that be available to the,
Yes, the presentation will be available, but just be mindful that it is sort of a draft or tentative. There's tentative information there, so.
After it's approved.
thank you.
okay, so at this time, I would like a motion to adopt the tentative budget.
I'd move it.
Second.
Roll call, please, Mr. Hastings.
Mr. LaRocca,
Yeah.
Ms. Lozinski,
Yes.
Sabez Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Breach,
Yes,
Ms. Cook, Mr. Grillo,
Yes.
Mr. Remy, Mr. Saunders,
Yes.
and Ms. Etienne.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, guys, right now, we're gonna be going into executive session. Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act allows for the exclusion from discussion at the public portion of a meeting of certain matters as outlined below, and whereas the Asbury Park Board of Education wishes to discuss such matters made and will make such discussions public when a proper conclusion has been reached. Now, therefore, it be resolved that March 18, 2021 at Asbury Park, New Jersey, for the purpose as outlined and described below, upon return, action may be taken. Adam, do you want to?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam President. For the public, the purpose of the board retiring into executive session is to discuss matters of the attorney-client privilege, to discuss ongoing litigation, to discuss contract negotiations, and to receive attorney-client advice. It's expected that the board will be in executive session for approximately 30 minutes.
So we all have the,
We need a motion.
Will the action be taken, Adam, or no?
Action will not be taken during executive session. Actually, let me state it this way. Action may be taken.
so may I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
Move it.
Second.
Any opposed? Okay, a Zoom link was sent to folks. I believe somebody, maybe it was Barb, mentioned it was sent on Wednesday, so you should have it in your calendars there. We're gonna retire to that Zoom meeting to meet with the attorney.
And Mr. Hastings, for the public, are we going to be returning to this WebEx meeting after executive session?
You have to return to.
Well, if you mentioned we may take action.
Yeah, understood. Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. We're going to mute, and I'm going to stop my video. So we're going to move on to the Zoom.
Okay, you guys, I think we have a quorum. We're trying to wait for Kenneth, but all we're doing is closing the meeting out. So I'd like a motion.
Motion to close the meeting.
Second.
Anybody opposed?
Anybody opposed? Very good.
Stay well, everybody.
I see you later.
Alligator.
Good night.
Night.
Good night, everyone. I'm about to say, what happened to everybody? They left.
Like, we got